Hey guys, Alicia here with Working Dog Radio, Torchlight Canine, and Oil Capital Canine Fund. I'd like to say thank you guys for listening to us for the past 6 years. That would not be possible without you and without our sponsors. We want to say thanks to Ray Allen Manufacturing. They've been a longtime partner of ours. They're friends of ours. We do equipment with them. We use their equipment every day. Ray Allen, the letter K, the number 9, on socials. Ray Allen Canine. Please check them out at rayallen.com. Everybody wants to feed their dog well, and if you're feeding them kinetic, you are. It takes the guesswork out of it. They've got some new supplements coming, some new flavors coming. We're going to have some previews for you. Please tune in for that. kineticdogfood.com, 513-615-6904. Check them out. American aluminum products save dogs' lives. All of our officers use their canine inserts. They also make some really nice rad crates and a lot of other things, including training aids. Check them out. American Aluminum Accessories on the socials. You can call them toll free, 800-277-0869, or email them for a quote at quotes@aaa-mail.com. Horizon Structures is a one-stop shop for your dog kennels. If you guys are serious about this and you're getting into it, you need space for dogs, give them a call, 888-447-4337. From mild to wild, let your imagination go. They can make it and drop it off at your door. Horizon Structures. And we would really like it if you guys would follow us on our new YouTube, Working Dog Radio YouTube. You're going to be able to see our pretty faces. You're going to be able to see our ads and our guests. We're going to have some really cool training videos. We're going to release podcasts earlier in that avenue. So please join us on our YouTube. We really appreciate you. Thank you for listening.
All right, we are back. Working Dog Radio, broadcasting the bite. As always, I am Ted Summers from Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I normally am, unless we're on the road. And with me, as always, from the Fun House in Canton is Eric Stambro. Of course, Eric, what's up?
Yeah, I'm down here at the Fun House because we're recording this at 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock your time. So I'm down here in front of my Step and Repeat logo in the back that we have that I've never really get to use. So yeah, I'm just getting over the 5th time I've had COVID. I was out in Colorado at the Colorado Canine Conference, which had a good time.
Yeah, so that's a cool deal, right? Like that's kind of it's not a normal like death by PowerPoint conference.
Correct. So it was the first year for it. Jeff Meyer, who used to be one of the owners of Hits, he wanted to do something a little bit different where guys could work their dogs a little bit. And Colorado has a lot, that whole area, there's got a lot of dogs. There's a lot of good history, a lot of long time.
A lot of good handlers, a lot of good dogs too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't see any dog, not a single dog that I would have told the handler, hey man, this dog, probably isn't for the road, with you, which you and I both have know. We've seen that at conferences and seminars where like, hey guy, this dog's going to get you hurt. Like not from the dog not doing the job. So it was pretty good. But what they did was I was my class was the keynote class the first day. And so everybody's there. And then afterwards we broke up into different locations, like stations, but you had to drive to these different locations. I was at a location where Steve Stoops was. Like I could see him, he could see me. He's doing his thing, I'm doing my thing. Howard and Mike Nesbitt were at another venue doing some bite work and some other stuff. And then a couple other guys, Cameron and a couple other guys were teaching some detection, a whole nother building. And so we went till 9 o'clock at night. And then every day in the morning, there would be 2 more instructors teaching class. A classroom for 2 hours, and then boom, off you go, off to your locations till 9 o'clock, and then the next night, same thing. And then the last day was during the daytime till like 2-3 o'clock, something like that. I can't remember, but so it was 4 days, which is good. 3 would have been too short. 4 was perfect. Colorado's crazy. So my son is there. Him and his fiance got an Airbnb. They live outside of Dallas, so Fort Worth, basically. And in the summer, you will spontaneously combust in that area of Texas.
True story.
Right. And so he's like, I think what I'm going to do in the summers is get an Airbnb kind of up in the mountains and enjoy a little bit cooler weather and hike, because he really gotten into hiking. So he got a Airbnb at like 10,000 feet, I think it is.
Oh.
Well, my wife went and she stayed up there with him. And I stayed down, just outside of Denver where it was 102 degrees.
Yeah.
Every day. Hot, but it's crazy, man. The evenings were 65. It was great. Even in the shade during the day, it wasn't too bad. It was cool. But the funny thing is, so my wife gets there on Saturday. Sunday, they hiked to like 14,000 feet. She's not acclimated or nothing. So she gets altitude sickness.
And Canton's at like what?
0,
800
basically.
feet.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah.
Like,
so you got to be there for a few days, right?
Yeah.
Well, they didn't. They went up 14,000 feet. She struggled, like really struggled. So one of the guys said, "Hey, all of the convenience stores here sell canned oxygen. She just needs to go down to a lower elevation, get some canned oxygen, drink a bunch of water, and then suck on the that oxygen for a while." And she did, and about a day she was good to go. And then they ended up climbing a glacier of some sort. But the place he's staying right outside the back there were moose every day. I've never seen a moose in person. They were huge, a bull and a couple females. And so that was really cool for her. But I just worked from 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. I loved it. I had a good time. However, on the last day, I did end up dragging some COVID with me back home and kicked my ass for a few days. But here we are. I'm probably about 90%. You probably even hear it a little bit anyways.
Yeah,
what's going on with you?
You sound a little fucked up, but I'm just getting ready for this next class. Pickup date is the end of the month, and I got a 160-hour class starting on September 2nd. So it's going to be a good group, single purpose, dual purpose bomb and explosive in this class. So going to be cool. The dog that's in the class, the bomb dog, I did the indirect reward protocol. How I do it with, if anybody watches SEAL Team for Pepper we've had Justin on the show. I did Pepper that way, and she's a gangster, and that dog that sent to Ukraine is the same way, Dookie. So that's it. It's gonna be a nice class. I got some nice dogs in this class, so it's gonna be cool.
Yeah, I got one starting September 1st, first week of September. Three, maybe 4 agents, maybe 4 handlers. I mean, 3 of the handlers are going down to see Scott Clark, I think next week, and look at dogs because I closed my kennel.
Right
now, there's a decent chance that I may be back into the dog providing business. Hold on. I'm not reopening the kennel. That's not happening.
Uh-huh.
But Rich from Police Canine Radio, what he does is he gets dogs that can stay at his pet facility that are social enough that his kennel staff can take care of the dogs. And then him and the trainers then train the dog and get him ready to attend a class, sell his green, different things like that. If I can get the right dogs that aren't going to nail the 19-year-old kid that works at my kennel, I'll be all right. Plus, my buddy Travis just told me the other day that he'll be willing to kennel some dogs for me if I need it.
That's your decoy buddy, right?
Yeah. Since I closed my kennel last August, no lie, probably could have sold 30 dogs.
I need to borrow Travis for HRD at the end of September.
Yeah, I'll get you his number.
Yeah.
So, I think you have it, but I'll make sure you have it.
So speaking of which, go ahead.
Prison.
Yeah, for West Moundsville.
Yeah. So anyways, you never know. You never know what's going to happen with that. But I came back and rocking and rolling, man.
Fuck yeah. So if they're listening or watching, you probably noticed that there's just me and Eric today. So we're doing something a little different. Some of the episodes that I think that we've done that have had a ton of downloads, the ones is usually Eric and I just talking about training. When we started this thing, it was always never about us. It was about other people in the industry that we felt were like had something of value to offer people. Neither one of us think that we have anything of value to offer anyway. Yet here we are. So that said, we've had people request like a lot of things. In fact, the the start of this entire project was based around Eric and I talking and answering the same questions over and over and over again from handlers, which you don't mind doing, by the way. Still, like, I answer questions all the time from people, and Eric does too. We're like, well, fuck it, we'll just start a podcast to, answer like a ton of questions at the same time. And so this is kind of like going back to episode 1. So what are we doing today? Like,
so we're going to talk some training stuff. Here's the thing about Ted and I, as podcast hosts, and I think everybody who has a working dog podcast, Howard and Rich and all our buddies and everything, they're all trainers. They're out there doing it.
They're all good trainers.
Yeah, they're doing a great job.
That's a huge caveat. Yes.
Sometimes we get into the mindset that we always have a guest, but meanwhile, you and I are doing it every day, training dogs every day. My thing lately has been traveling around the country doing these seminars, the e-collar without conflict seminar that I'm doing. And we actually do handle, touch a lot of dogs. We train a lot of dogs on a regular basis. And so we're just going to talk about, each one of us is going to pick a topic that we thought about to teach today. And I think it'll go pretty good. I think it'll be a well-received episode. They're going to be completely different. What I'm going to talk about is completely different than what Ted's going to talk about. And I think you guys, you'll get a lot out of it. It should work out for you pretty good. So you want to go first? You want me to?
You go first. I'm still kind of thinking. I've got a couple of topics that I'm fucking.
Okay.
I'm going back and forth on, but I have a couple that I've been talking about a lot of people recently. So,
so I think I may have put this on my Van Ness Canine on Instagram, social media. Oh, by the way, listen, guys, please do us a favor and go to YouTube, like, rate, subscribe on YouTube. Go to Spotify. Also, give us a 5-star like and subscribe on there. Everywhere that you can hear it, go. If you'll do that for us, it would really, really appreciate it, especially on YouTube. We're trying to make it so that we can afford this thing that we're doing here. So I think I talked about it on my social media on Instagram. It's a concept that I call the power of twos. And when I'm telling this, people be like, yeah, I do that. I've been doing kind of that, which is cool. A lot of people do some things that we're going to talk about that don't even really know why they do it, or they don't even know the advantages of why they're doing it. And I just added the words, the power of twos, into my PowerPoint so I can talk about it. And I'm finding at my conferences, I'm using it more and more and more when it comes to working dogs that have sticky outs. And it's really helping. So the concept that I'm talking about, the power of twos, is where you give a command, one command, and then you give a different command and you pay that second command, or you correct the first thing the dog is doing and reward the second thing the dog is doing. Each time, the second thing becomes more valuable. The dog ends up racing to get to the second thing because the second thing is what pays them.
It goes back to the anticipation of being rewarded is actually more powerful than the reward itself.
Correct.
Right.
So, and I'll give a few examples, and we'll get into the bite work stuff of it. So, like pet dog trainers, you guys that are out there listening are pet dog trainers, you know that dealing with reactive dogs can be a pain in the ass, right? We all have our own little systems. We have ways to do it. They're all pretty similar when it comes to dealing with reactive dogs. And sometimes those things don't even work for every reactive dog. Like reactivity, if you live with a reactive dog, and if you don't know what I mean, it's a dog who's at the end of the leash at every person, and
it's super
dog.
annoying.
Yeah, and it's a fear-based activity. It's not aggression. I mean, there are aggressive dogs who do the same thing, but truly forward aggressive dogs are super rare, even in police work. But reactive dogs, bark at the end of the leash at everything that drives by, walks by. Sometimes it's just people, sometimes people and dogs, sometimes it's just dogs. So one of the things I started doing on the power of twos is, and I mentored a kid, he might even be listening to us. He's a real good trainer. He's up and coming. He does amazing work. He had a really, really problematic dog, and nothing was seeming to really stick with the dog on the reactivity side. So what I told him is, I said, start doing where you correct the looking or the reactivity, get the dog to look at you and pay him for looking at you, because the dog would still take food even when he was in the reaction mode, which is crazy because that doesn't happen a lot. I said, so correct number one and pay number two. So correct reactivity or about to react, get the dog to look at you or the owner and pay that. And so pretty soon what he started noticing within a day or two was the dog started barking and then bark on his own. And then when you could tell he wanted to react, he would just turn to the trainer or to the owner. Right. So because the second thing, what pays, the first thing was a correction. The second thing is what paid. And it really helped this dog mentally function. It would be just like, I'm not going to react to this thing. I'm just going to look up here because this is good. That's whatever. And then there's so much other stuff with reactivity that you got to get into. But anyways, so I started really thinking about it, what all the stuff that we do with the power of twos. And so I really started thinking about it with bite work. When we're working dogs that have a sticky out, some of them will out, and then they, if you can see the video, if you're watching, they hover, or they take a cheap shot, because what do we usually do? Out, reward, out, reward. Outing brings the next bite, right?
Yeah, the next, and that's exactly what I tell people, because when I'm at seminars or wherever, not with my guys, but I'm like, how do we reward police dogs for outing? People are like, oh, give them another bite. And I'm like, and you wonder why they fucking get sticky. You wonder why they get fucking dirty.
And it's kind of the nature of what we have to do. And you and I talk about competing motivators. I don't want to out the dog to get a toy. I don't want anything like that, because at some point you won't have the toy and you become the toy, or your homie standing next to you,
or their Glock.
Right. So when we're working that out, it's very common to out reward, and then guys will start putting out sit or out back to me, then get a reward and things like that. Well, they're doing the out sit, out down, or out return back to the handler just for an obedience thing, so that they can kind of have a little bit of control over the dog, and I understand that. But what I started really paying attention to is with the power of twos, where you have to probably correct the dog if they're sticky. And then if you add that, so the power of twos as it is right now, the way most people are doing it, is out correction, rebite as a reward. So the out becomes the means to get the reward. So what I started doing is, on those dogs that are sticky or like to linger, and we call them, everybody says, oh, they're cheaters. He's a cheater, you fucker. He's cheating. He took a little cheap shot, and you have to correct that cheap shot. Somebody's got to work your collar and correct the cheap shot. So what I started doing in the concept of the power of twos was correct the first thing, which is outing, not outing, and then add a down or a sit. Usually I like a down, but we'll say down. We'll say down for the purpose of the class. Down, and then when they down, they get the rebite. So what happens is correct number one, pay number two. The second thing is the down. So we'll go out, down, and I'll give them those commands pretty quickly. Or when I see the dog starting to think as he's getting corrected, I will down and get the dog to down, and the down gets the reward. So then what I noticed, it's not just an obedience thing. What ends up happening is, through the power of twos, that second thing is what brings in the reward. So the out just becomes a means to get to the down, because the down is what's paying the dog. Don't think about it as just kind of a control technique. So I started really messing with it at my seminars, and I didn't do it with every dog, because not every dog seemed to need it. Some of them do it on their own, which is great if you can do that. But we're getting into that rhythm, out, down, and dogs that end up being super sticky will out and fly to the down, because the down is what gets them the rebite, not the out. The out just gets them there. They have to let go to get to the down. So even in a table, like I prefer a down on the table versus a sit, because fucking dogs can sit and still hold onto the decoy. And so out, down. And what I noticed is, because of prior conflict, you're giving the out command and the dog is still whining or growling or making some noise or whatever. A lot of those dogs, I'll start just giving so what you'll do is you'll go out and they're making noise, down, and they stop making noise and they go to the down. And the down, because there's no conflict there. Down, straight back into the bite. Down, straight back into the bite. So then what I started noticing, I just did in Colorado with a bunch of dogs. I said, okay, now I don't want you to say out. I want you just to say the down command. So we'll just use down as the example. And so we're doing it, and the dog's on the bite, and he goes, down, dog, let's go. No noise, no barking, no growling, no extra pulls. Down, dog, let's go. Boom, into the down. And then launches back up. And you could even add the power of threes, I guess it would be, which would be a down, return to the handler, and then that gets the rebite. As you notice, as you start doing this, they'll start skipping the down and just flying back to the handler. So then you're back to the power of twos where that. So if you're having those problems with that, with your dog who's cheating, so to speak, or taking a cheap shot or sticky, and there's just conflict in you saying even his name or you saying the out command, try to work on that out, down, out, down, out, down, 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 and just watch that dog clear up. And then there's no conflict over the out because the down is the reward. And I'm seeing it clear up so many dogs.
It does. And there's a constellation of things going on in this conversation because you're describing a very, very like precise process. And like, if you go back, and this is a recent episode, like the last time we had Bradshaw on at the Hold the Line conference down in Myrtle Beach, we talked about drive capping with him, and he went through the process of how we, or they, whoever, everyone should do whatever, not should, whatever, how he teaches it. And like, and I'm very similar in the way that I do it, but what you're describing is very much that way. Right. So the trick here is that we're instituting a behavior in the power of twos as we go into a down that pays, and it gives us the ability to start capping the dog. And this pays dividends in building searches when you were asking the dog to down out in front of us on a long line, or down when we're making announcements, or just down so that we can talk to whoever is standing there and the dog's not fucking losing his mind. And, and this is where that behavior starts. And rather than, and again, like in terms of this global 30,000 foot constellation view, we have like why dogs are selected and how they're trained and how they're picked, and the selection criteria is a lot different than the training criteria and everything else. But I see a lot of handlers obviously not doing this, and I think it's a lot of it is because it's not a very the old saying was the dog doesn't want to out because he doesn't want the game to stop. And if we give him a rebite instantly, then the game doesn't stop. And at some point the game does have to stop. Like LAPD, when we had Gooseby on, he talked about it. And they're a perfect example. And I do a very similar thing to what they do, right? So if I have a dog off leash or even on leash that I can't see and he's away from me, we give one command. That's it. And you started this entire conversation with one command, right? And as well as, and you've been around me plenty of times to know, and anyone listening that's been around me, and it's one command, one behavior. I fucking hate when handlers continue to give the same command over and over and over and over again. I'm like, motherfucker, you see how big his ears are? He fucking heard you the first time. And so and on top of that, because canine is so much different than sport work, in terms of the handling and in terms of whatever, it's a very unique thing. I want so many behaviors to be tied up into one. So personally, I use those collars and I use vibrator tone, and that is out and recall at the same time. When we had Gooseby on, it's kind of the same thing. That's the way that they do it. They give the dog a heel command, and you can't heel if you've got somebody in your mouth. So it's an out, it's a recall, and it's a heel command all in the same thing. And they just say one command and the dog does it. And we do the same thing. I do the silent recall with tone and vibrate, same thing. And this is where it starts, right? So, and if you're listening to this and you've been to Eric's seminar, if you haven't, you've heard us talk about it, about Eric talking about tone avoidance. And this is kind of part of that whole process. And the tone avoidance is sort of the key to, I'm sure what you're about, I'm not going to put words in your mouth. What you're about to say is the tone vibration avoidance is the key to out and immediately go into a down and anticipate a next command.
Correct.
Which is where it starts.
So the tone avoidance is part of the first thing of the outing.
Yep.
They get a chance to avoid it. And then So there's removing some conflict, and then flying into that down to get that rebite. There's no conflict in laying down, right? Or even a sit or whatever. Something funny, or not funny, but interesting you said, thinking about the power of twos when it comes to dogs barking at the door. So
Yeah.
typically what guys will do is they'll yoke the dog, whatever it is, to get the dog to be quiet. And as soon as he's quiet, they send him. Rather than think about trying that, and that might work for you. That might just be perfect for you. Try doing the quieting the dog and then make him do something else and then send him. So quiet, down, door goes, right? So that he'll just come up to the door and start laying down, because the down is what pays him. Being quiet, laying down and quiet is what pays him. So something to think about if you're struggling or you're like, man, like he'll shut up, but I got to fucking yoke his neck. Give him another thing to do in successive order, and because what will happen is this anticipation thing that Ted is talking about, the dog will come up and go to the down in anticipation of getting to go, right? Now, some dogs in anticipation get spun up, but you correct the first thing, pay the second thing, correct the barking, pay the down quiet, boom, boom, boom. That'll clear up a lot of your stuff at the doors. Now, before we move on to Ted's, I'm going to tell you how you can screw things up.
Before you do that, I want to add one other layer to that to add to people. So the antidote to loading, or the antidote to anticipation, which is loading, is variability. So if you get to the point where, like, every time you go up to a door on a live call, and I hope you're not standing at doors, which is a whole other conversation. Anyway, when the dog hears the fucking announcement and he loses his mind, and you get to the point where he's not losing his mind, and every training scenario you've sent the dog into the building, not every single time, somebody from at some point in your career, somebody's going to give up, and they're either going to come out or they're going to start making noise, and then the dog's going to lose his shit again. So variability, just like in detection work, because double blind and single blind testing is super important, and you need to document whatever else. And the same thing with this. So it's completely conceivable that you could have a dog down and quiet and somebody give up, and you're like, hey, come here for a second. Tell the dog, here. Whoop. He comes back and you reward the recall immediately. So it's variability is the antidote for loading, and for just, especially for fucking Malinois that just spin up into little tornadoes, and like they down, and then they're like, okay, now I get to bite, because that's what I've done 1,000 times. And just like, no, now we're going to recall. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to whatever, right? So variability will be the key. Planning that ahead of time is also part of it. But so now, how can you fuck it up?
Well, real quick too, at the door like that, don't be afraid to use negative punishment. Go up, just leave. Yeah. Fuck you, dude. You're out. You blew it. Yeah. You know you're not supposed to. You blew it. So you put him up. I got to the point with my second dog, Willie, where, because I didn't know any of this shit, dude. I just would have someone else give the announcement. I'd stand by the car.
Well, and Willie was a predator too.
Yeah, and I'd go get him and walk him up, and then whisper in his ear, find him, and because the warnings had already been given. But anyways, real quick, we'll talk about a way that you guys can screw up the power of twos. And this is when you're trying to work that downstay for cert or whatever it is that you want to do. What guys have a tendency to do is they'll go put the dog in a down, number one, maybe tell them to stay, maybe not, whatever your protocol is. You walk away 50 feet, whatever it is, and you stand there, and then you call him to you, and you pay him when he gets to you. 2. So what happens is, pretty quickly the dog, you're turning and the dog's breaking. You're like, you fucker. Then you, let me put him back, over and over and over and over again, because you're paying the second thing, which is coming to you. The easiest way to do that is stop calling the dog off of his downstay to you. Go to him and reward him where you want him to be. So you're down, and then you're paying him for staying there. Number 2, down 1, pay for staying here. Just walk away 50 feet, get yourself 20 seconds, walk back in, pay him. Stay, walk away, 30 seconds, come back, pay him. Stop calling him to you. Work a finish separately. Like Ted talks about micro skills all the time. If your dog has to come to a finish as part of his routine, work that completely separately. Don't do it from a down. Just do it from where he's walking around, maybe on a leash, and work that finish movement completely separate from the other things. So think about the power twos where it can work for you, but can work against you. When I'm doing my classes, my seminars, the first day after the lecture, I'm relayering the e-collar over top of them using negative reinforcement. I don't know if that's what you're going to talk about or not, but I throw the food and we have them coming back, right? And they get paid. Then I said, okay, add the sit, pay the sit. So they're coming, they're paying the sit. Well, that dog is flying after about 3-4 reps, flying into the sit because that's what's paying him. I go, okay, now it's come, sit down, pay the down. Come, sit down. And they're like, the guys are like, well, they won't sit. They keep going to the down. I'm like, A, I don't care. But if you don't like that, then pay the sit. And when he goes to the down, tell him good and throw another piece of food. Mix it up. Always think about the thing you're paying is what they're going to get to. So I hope that helps some guys, especially the down part on the bite work. Don't think about it as obedience and control. Think about it as, what am I going to pay this dog for? Pay him for downing and not outing, and you'll find you will clear up a lot of little bullshit issues that you have. And if you're a sport guy who is bleeding points because the dog takes a little extra cheap shots, think about that too. Start working that stuff into there. So enough for me. What do you got?
Do we want to take a break and then come back?
Yep, let's do that.
Yeah, okay. So, don't fast forward. You're probably going to, but don't. We'll be back in a second. And, I'm going to talk about some other e-collar stuff too. So hang out.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening to us for the past 6 years. It would not be possible without our sponsors. And one of our longest time sponsors, in fact, our longest time sponsor, is Tactical Police Canine, Aaron and Jason Ferguson. They are amazing. They've been amazing to us, and they are amazing to this industry. They have a new online series that is for law enforcement only. And law enforcement guys, you know how important it is to keep up on your practices and your education. This one is for you. It's a canine criminal interdiction series, and it is literally for you guys to expand your knowledge on canine usage during traffic stops and interdiction work. It's going to cover things like roadside interview techniques, identifying traps and hidden compartments, related case law and record keeping strategies, you name it, it is in this course and you need to have it. If you go to their website, tacticalpolicecaninetraining.com, and you use their discount code NARC, all caps, you will get 20% off any of their online courses. Check them out. Dogtra. We use so many Dogtra products that it's hard to even tell you where we begin. All of our canine get a Dogtra e-collar. We use the 1900 black, and all of our pets get a 200C. All of our canines use bark collars. We have their ball training systems. We've even bought a quail launcher from them. We use bungee collars. You name it. If it goes on your dog's neck, we get it at Dogtra. Dogtra has been great to us through the years. We love their sponsorship. We love their products. I order them every single week. If you go to dogtra.com, you can use the discount code WDR10. You'll get 10% off a single item over $200. You can also check out Dogtra Official for their socials and follow them there and see what other products that they're coming out with because they innovate every day. Dogtra.com.
All right, we are back. Working Dog Radio, broadcasting the bite. It's just me and Eric today, which is cool because we get to talk about some of the stuff that we're doing. We usually have guests on all the time, and we're talking about what they're doing. Not all of them are even trainers sometimes. So they're kind of like, in the canine world, whether on the equipment side or manufacturer side or whatever. But so Eric and I are doing nitty gritty shit that we're doing today, or that we're doing right now with like police dogs or pet dogs or whatever else. Before I get going, one of our buddies who I've been trying to get on the podcast, or one of my buddies, you've never met him. You'll like him though. Just won the A1, which is an Oklahoma deal here. We have, it's an association of narcotics interdiction stuff. And it goes from prosecutor to like canine handler and investigator and all this other stuff. They give out a bunch of awards for people that have like really and a lot of my dogs have won. Like last year, the dog of the year was one of the dogs that I raised. That dog, the little pointer. This year is one of our buddies, Max Oden. One of my buddies, Max Oden, who's one of the head trainers for the Bureau of Indian Affairs. I'm trying to get him on the podcast, but he's been fucking busy because he's won dog of the year or Canine Team of the Year. So yeah, and Max is another third, tall, bald-headed second grader like Anthony Moore and you, and fucking yelling at people. So Max will be on at some point, but Max won dog of the year this year. They won team of the year, so shout out. That's well deserved. They have ruined a lot of people's days this year or last year. So yeah. Nice. So you were talking about the power twos and kind of we were going back and forth about variability and some of the other things about how to fix some of the annoying behaviors that dual purpose dogs develop during their like careers, and they may not leave the vendor that way, but they end up developing these behaviors through multiple reps and training, and very rarely in live deployments, but a lot of times in training. And I'm going to talk about something kind of in the similar vein. So because of social media and whatever else, and one of our other companies, HRD, I'm kind of known for apprehension work or bite work, and that's how I kind of got my start in canine and whatever else. Is I was a decoy. I've been a decoy for a long time, a senior level decoy in PSA. I'm decoying a trial in Texas, by the way, in September, as a senior decoy out in Lubbock, I think Lubbock or Amarillo, like out in the Texas Panhandle. Anyway, so that's kind of what I'm known for, right? So even when we have Cameron Ford on, for example, Cameron, anyone listening to this, Cameron, people know that Cameron is like the detection guy. He said that he doesn't want to be known as that, but that's what he talks about. But Cameron's also a very adept trainer at obedience and tracking and apprehension work. He's handled, how many states did he handle dogs in? Like 3 or 4 or something?
He's a gypsy, so like 10.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's probably fucking handled a dog in Canada too. But we love you, Cameron. So people get kind of in their niches with things like, for example, Nesbeth and Carlos are very talented, very, very talented decoys, and they're even more talented instructors. But Nesbeth and Carlos both are very talented detection trainers. I've talked at length with both of them. So one of the things that it always surprises people at like these seminars that I go to when they talk to me about detection problems, they talk to me about tracking problems, because they're like, oh shit, I didn't know you do. I'm like, well, fuck, of course I have to, because I sell police dogs. Like I have to be a good detection trainer. Like, I mean, it is what it is, because I mean, I sell a shit ton of single purpose dogs. They ain't biting nobody. Pointers ain't biting nobody. So, I mean, and they have to work. So in that vein, Eric's been talking about the power twos and about how we fuck things up as handlers, and I kind of want to talk about how I start the imprinting process on tracking. And nothing I'm about to talk about is anything that I invented. I stole it from Dick Stahl, who's been on the show, and I have a ton of respect for, and also Mike Lilly and Justin Rigney, who are 2 other trainers that I have a shit ton of respect for, and also Steve White, who is someone that I've instructed with at conferences and had multiple conversations with, and he's a great dude. He finally retired from Seattle PD, and he's going around sharing his 10,000 hour eyes presentation, which is awesome if you haven't sat through it. And his tracking thing is good too. So I break the golden rule in detection work, the old school golden rule in detection work and tracking. I will use negative reinforcement in both. If you're listening to this and you're a handler and you're a new handler, do some research on, just kind of look up some operant conditioning. I'm not going to go into what negative reinforcement is. I'm going to explain it so that everybody's on the same page. And when you get into your car and you don't plug your seatbelt in and it beeps and you're like, God damn it. Like, I'm going to hit a telephone pole if that thing doesn't start. It doesn't stop making noise, and you plug your seatbelt in and it stops. The beeping is not going to kill you. It doesn't really even cause any discomfort. It's just super fucking annoying. So you plug your seatbelt in, right? And it is a form of operant conditioning. Mm-hmm. And you are operantly conditioned to putting your seatbelt on, which is why our highway standards and our accident, the amount of deaths during our accidents went down when car manufacturers started doing that. Crazy. Just a noise. A simple noise just started prevented people from fucking dying in car accidents. Crazy, right? There's a bunch of other shit that happened at the same time. So anyway, during that, I start with articles. So if you're familiar with Dick Stahl's method, I start that way, right? We start with articles. You start in a little bowl. I actually built a box that I use that I call the runway. And it's basically a thing. So the dog has to lay like the Sphinx in Egypt, and they have to lay in the box. They have to stare in the bowl at the thing that's scented with my girlfriend calls it ball water, which is basically
Gross.
Yeah, it's gross. It smells disgusting. And it is literally boxer shorts and shirts that I use after a kettlebell workout in the Oklahoma humidity when it's 120 degrees in the heat index.
I got to get a trash can.
Exactly, with distilled water. So it has a very pungent smell. So at any point, what we're doing is we start this whole process. And in the terms of power of twos, right, I ask the dog to sit and stare at me, right? So I have an obedience routine that I'm already doing. The dog has been paid for sitting because we usually work on it beforehand. So we sit, mark, sit, mark, sit, mark, sit, mark, sit, mark, blah, 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 over again, all positive reinforcement, not negative reinforcement, right? So they sit, we mark it with yes or whatever we're doing, or a clicker or whatever, give them a treat, done deal, right? Multiply that times 9,000 and you got to sit. So with the negative reinforcement, the power of twos, I sit the dog, make eye contact, and then I cast and give them their little search command, or if we're even doing it, we just cast. But as I do it, we layer on low-level e-collar stimulation. When I get dogs in from Europe, because the Europeans now are really scared of e-collars and pinch collars, and everybody's scared, and regardless, and despite the fact that right now London is burning and people are getting cut up, but they're scared of fucking e-collars anyway. And same thing with Australia. The Australians are scared of e-collar, not the dog trainers, but the government is scared of e-collars. United States, we're not. We're going to have Jason Ferguson on the next episode. We're going to talk about that. But I use low-level stimulation. If you're using a Dogtra, like a 1900S or a 1900 hands-free or whatever, it is usually between 6 and 10-ish out of 127. It's low, like super low. A lot of those dogs have never experienced an e-collar, and this is how I imprint them on an e-collar. So it's super low constant stimulation. If you've watched my social media videos with detection work and with e-collar or with tracking, you'll hear the dog squawk box in the background making noise. So we start by the sit, and then we cast the dog in on an article, and low-level stimulation is held down until they get on an article, and then we get the behavior we want. And I shape it, or I use successive approximation. I'll shape like the interest in the article, then the behavior on the article. And then once we have all of those things, which usually happens pretty quickly, pressure will stop and mana will rain from sky. Food starts raining down. We've been using that kinetic, the 24K stuff, because it's big.
I may even have a piece.
Probably. I probably have some in my pocket. But it starts raining down, right? And then I start
look at these guys. Look at that
there
piece.
You go. It's like the size of a nickel.
24K kinetic, yep.
There you go. And it doesn't mess with their stomachs. Super nice. And because it doesn't have a ton of calorie content, you can do 1,000,000 reps and nobody's tummy hurts. So mana starts raining from sky. And this is how we do article indication. And this is how I start the article indication and I start the tracking. So as the moment the dog gives me the behavior on the down, pressure stops. At the same time, food starts falling out of the sky. So the ideal picture is the dog in the Sphinx position staring. If you can look on YouTube, you can see me looking down like I'm a dog, but staring at the article in between his toes or in between his paws or whatever, like in between his feet. And then we'll start building duration, and then I'll start building commitment, and then I'll pull them out of the box, and this is in the kennel. So it's a concrete floor, and I throw like a challenge coin or something like that won't roll. And we'll then, as soon as I throw it, I then hold down e-collar pressure. As soon as they going down, pressure releases, drop, mana rains from sky. And that is how we start tracking. Because the dog is now already conditioned to e-collar work with this method, right? And on top of that, within the poker chip or whatever I'm using, or the challenge coin's got that water, my girlfriend calls it the ball water on it. Like it's already, we're imprinting that odor. Like if we listen to the Brad Gillespie episode, he said that he said it very, very well. He said, we're making an odor that is innocuous valuable. I'm paraphrasing. That's not the exact words that he used, but I'm making that odor valuable. the human odor valuable. So at that point, I then take the dog, like once I have them like kind of bouncing around the kennel, and like they'll go onto an article under e-collar pressure, and then I'll reward them off the article. Like I'll throw the large kibble away from the article. They'll go pick it up, and then they'll come back and give me the behavior on the article under e-collar pressure too. They come back down and alert on the article. Pressure stops. As soon as it stops, I throw it. And Eric, you've said this before on social media, you've said it on the show, but the big chip things make sense because they make noise. So they know that I throw it, right? So I'll bounce it off. If you watch social media, you see me, like I have those big bank of lockers in the kennel and they make noise. So I make sure that I throw it and it hits the locker so the dog hears it. Because they may not see me throw it because they're focused on the article. Once we have that kind of behavior going, we take them out and we start tracks. Baby tracks, super easy fucking tracks. Super, super easy. Straight line, 40 meters. And 40 meters, and, food spaced at every 12, basically however long your foot is. Like everybody's got different size feet, but it's close enough. Like, and a foot, 12 inches, whatever. So it's a line of water, line of ball water, and it's the same procedure. We cast the dog down. They're looking for an article, and then they start playing Pac-Man down. And then we have an article that they're familiar with at the end of that tiny one. And then they automatically fucking hammer it down. And then we back up, and then we start raining food on them there. We'll do 10, 15 pieces and then have them come up, and super easy. What I've ended up finding is that once dogs get deployed, and going through all the, from that point, from the baby track to the finish track. And I should say this is on hard surface. We start on hard surface. They graduate to grass. Grass is the last thing. They go they go really, really smooth concrete where it's a really defined line, to that broken ass, like weird asphalt stuff, and then smaller articles to curvy lines. So the asphalt like varies. And then I have some areas where I can track in a circle, like a giant, 40-meter circle, where we have asphalt, gravel, grass, sand, asphalt, gravel, grass, sand, curb, more asphalt, different type of concrete. Like it's just a big circle. And I just walk behind them while they're tracking, and just I just put food down behind them, like every 10, 15 steps. And we're just tracking a circle. And then we get wind direction changes. The first tracks, by the way, are done. I start with a tailwind, which is kind of counterintuitive. And I've had people disagree with me. I do it personally because I want their head down. And it's because of how I train tracking. I train the article, then I train the actual tracking event, and then I train proximity alerts completely separately as a completely separate skill set. So for the actual tracking, that negative reinforcement of releasing e-collar pressure, I want their head down, and I want them looking for odor. I call it, if you look at my social media, like near the top, there's a dog. If you go to Instagram, there's a dog on there. His name's Huck. He's on a department now in southern Oklahoma near the border. And it's got stuff overlaid on it. You can watch me stem him, and you can see him dive back to over. And I literally just call it commitment to human odor. That's it. That's all I want. What I also find is that helps me during building searches with teaching the dogs how to do building searches in the context of commitment to human odor. And I won't start building searches until we're pretty good tracking, tricky tracking along, before we add any bites to it at all. And typically during building searches is when we'll start adding bites to tracks at the same time. But it's all worked in the process of e-collar work. The thing is, once what I found is, like, a lot of times my guys are very successful tracking, finding evidence and article searches and everything else. But if you have a dog, and Eric, you say this all the time, like, you rarely do bites in training because all your dudes bite people in fucking tracks. Anyway, what I end up finding is that dogs that start cheating, it gives handlers a way to go back to foundation, and it gives them a way to go back to what the dog, like in their very, very beginning days of learning to do their job, and remind them how that shit works. The other thing that it does is it stops all the stupid shit the speed. No, I'm not correcting for speed, but it corrects speed and also corrects like excessive marking and all other stuff. You're getting them out on an actual track. They got to go potty first and everything else. And I don't mind if a dog goes to the bathroom on a track if they just go right back to work. If they're like, I got to piss, right? And then they go back to work, that's fine. But if it becomes a habit, like if they got to piss on every tree, I will start correcting that. But this kind of prevents that because, you know, like if you listen to Rigney talk about it, he's like, we're using a gas pedal. So the e-collar is being used as a gas pedal, super low level stimulation. And I will hold that down and I start to ease up on the requirements for stopping that behavior, stopping that stimulation. During the early stages, the early tracks, like if you're looking at YouTube, you can see my hands are about 4 to 6 inches apart. That's how wide my water strip is. If they dip off of that water track at all, or if they pick their head up, they are getting stimulation and it stops as soon as they go back into odor. And I release that requirement once the visualization goes away. So when we start losing variable surfaces and everything else where you can't see it, but the odor is still there, as long as they're actively hunting, and in that video I talk about on Instagram, you can go watch it. As long as they're actively hunting, they're not getting stimulation with the except. And if you watch that video at the end, you can see where the track, literally the dog's name's Huck. The track ends. And the track ends because my track layer just like literally jumped in a car. And you see the dog just fervently running back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, looking for human odor and going in and out, back and forth, in and out, back and forth. And I just tossed the ball over his head and was like, good boy, buddy. And because he was looking for human odor. So it gives you a way to go back to foundation work and fix, like when they start cheating and they start taking shortcuts because they're fucking cheaters, like Eric was talking about. It gives you a way to revert back to it. And if you have a dog that wasn't done this way, that wasn't trained this way, like if you have a dog that was trained by a trainer that is like old school, like footstep tracking, or God forbid you have a trainer that teaches disturbed earth, you can still do this with a 5 or 6 year old dog. I've done it more times than I can even remember, where a dog has already been deployed, already been successful on tracks, but they will 100% come back to it as a way for you to fix all those behaviors when they start getting all of those dumb shit things that like Eric was talking about, like they start learning to bark at doors, they start learning to do all this other shit. And tracking is one of those things where the dogs, like if the dog doesn't have a strong foundation in what we're being asked them to do, and then they learn how to do all this other shit just from, you know, either classical or opposite conditioning, unbeknownst to the handler, then tracking usually goes to shit. I can't tell you the number of times I go to seminars and dudes like, he doesn't really track a whole lot, but he does building searches really well. Like, you know, it's the same odor, right? And they kind of look at me and I'm like, I'm just saying it's looking for people. That's it. It's the same thing.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So say you're doing the same method either for the human odor, imprinting the very first odor of narcotics or explosives as an example. And I asked this because somebody I know has just started using kind of that method, marking it and paying that food there, throwing, and then they come back. How do you ensure that the dog is not just coming back and putting his face there? How do you ensure that the dog, it's actually the odor?
So the whatever we have has got like
whatever vessel it's in.
Yeah, it's like it's got my hand, it's got odor on it, right? So, and it's in an area that is clean. So my staff mops at least twice a day with like a really strong kind of like to kill stuff. So it's usually in an area that's really clean, so there's not any contamination in the background. I mean, normal contamination from just walking around and shit, but not like, you know, rats and fucking weird shit and animals. And like, I'm not spitting in there and, you know, there's not other dog piss. And so it's a very contrasted thing, right? Like we've got background odor and then I've got this thing, this object that's very potent, but the behavior that we're marking is them staring at it, right? I don't want them touching it. I don't want to promote touching. Especially with articles, because of the evidentiary process. And if we have them alert on a firearm, I don't want them fucking touching guns or knives or stuff with shit on it. And like, so I don't necessarily want them touching it, but I definitely want them looking at it. And that's the behavior that we're marking. So we toss it, it makes a noise, the dog comes back, right? And as soon as they get up to go get the piece of kibble that we threw, e-collar comes on, and they go get it, and they come right back. And as soon as they down, release, and throw the food out, and throw the food again. And so as soon as they're looking like at the thing, whatever the fuck it is, I release and throw. And it's that marking behavior. And it's the same thing. Like if you everybody listening to this is a detection handler, or most of you are. And it's the same thing, right? Like how many of your dogs like will kind of look over the shoulder. They know where they know where the reward's coming from. And that comes from them being smarter and faster than you. So this is a very similar, very, very similar thing to that, but I'm using two versions of reinforcement at this point. I'm using positive and negative reinforcement. So both one stops and the other one comes on at the same time. So the precision or the timing of that is vitally important of making sure that you're getting that behavior. What that translates to in like a deployment, which is messy, obviously, is the dog goes and finds the article in the field, and then he looks at it. We stand over and we drop the article. We drop the toy in his face, or we practice them too, where it's an article that we don't want to approach. Not necessarily a bomb, because it's not a bomb dog, but just something that I don't want to mess with because there may be other evidence around it, and we'll recall the dog to us and reward, or I'll throw the toy off the article, like whatever, away from it, and then recall the dog at the same time and bring back and pay and play with it. So it gives you the option to do any of those other things.
Cool. That's really cool. How long are you doing your runway thing before you start into the tracking part?
I like to do the runway portion and same thing with detection work. I posted a video a couple days ago, or a week ago, or I don't know, recently, of me doing some detection work with boxes. Right. I still use a ball popper, and like Howard Young and like Rick Walterbeek were both like, oh, it's so good to see people using the old way. I'm like, the old way? Oh, fuck. What are you talking about? The old way. So I still, I like to use those things as little as possible. So once I get a pretty like defined behavior. So once we stack up once I stand up and I square up on the dog and we're in front of the runway, and I'm about, 6 feet away from the runway, and I hit e-collar pressure and the dog commits instantly and goes in and downs, I'll pull them out of the runway immediately and move to, like at that point they've determined that. And the only reason I use the runway is to prevent them from rolling onto their hip or like rolling onto their side and trying to look at the handler at the same time and like trying to fucking game the system. If you listen to Rigney talk about it, like they're trying to rob the bank or they're trying to see the drip. And so I use the runway to kind of like control their behaviors, basically a Skinner box, right? Yeah. Like to control. And then I think we've had some sport people on that talk about like position boxes and positions. It's kind of the same thing as all it is, but it's built specifically. In fact, I have a bowl that's it's not very big, and it's drilled into the box so it can't move, and the coin is in the box. So I pre-bait the bowl with food initially with the odor, so that like the whole process is all integrated into one thing. And then I slowly weed out or phase out all that stuff eventually, like pretty quickly. So I phase out as quickly as possible. Some dogs so if you have a dog that comes in from Europe that has a very good reward history of downing, right? You may only need to run the runway, 2 sessions of about 10 minutes ish. Because they have already got a very good reward history of downing, right? So we're just chaining behaviors, right? So you mentioned earlier, I talk a lot about micro skills. A down is a micro skill. And then if you don't have a dog that comes in and he has never been on a damn leash before, I've gotten some of those in before. They've never seen a fucking leash in their life. And they don't know how to down. They just sit, and all I knew how to was bite shit and fuck people up. And that's super annoying. So those dogs need to be taught how to down and how to sit. So we do a bunch of obedience with them beforehand. And we start with a foundation of obedience with sits and downs and correct healing position and everything else. Right. And it's just basic pet shit. There's no e-collar on that. That is straight up positive reinforcement. Down, mark, down, mark, down, mark, down, mark, over and over and over and over and over again. By the way, if you're downing and you're rewarding the down, don't reward them from your hand. Fucking drop their food in their fucking paws Because if you're going to teach them that they just pop up every single fucking time, and they'll keep popping up, which will cause a problem during building searches. It'll cause a problem during remote downs when you're like clearing hard corners in buildings and outside. So drop the food in between their paws, so they got to eat off the ground. But once we have a solid down on command, I'll tell them, right? Like, down. And I like to try to do as much self-discovery as possible with detection work and with tracking. Definitely with proximity alerts, or what I call self-discovery. Of course, I know what's going on in the background. They don't. Same thing with building searches, because it's a super powerful thing for the dog. Self-discovery is everything, right? They think that they made it happen. So I'll tell them to down. Like, they'll go into the bowl, and if I have a dog that's had a problem downing and I taught him to down, I spend like 3 or 4 days like working on a bunch of obedience, and I'm like, plots, bro. He comes in and he goes in, plots, he downs, pressure comes off, starts downing. Or and food starts raining, and then it becomes 3. I have 2 dogs in class right now that would not down. One was fear of missing out. If down meant that I had to do 2 extra muscle movements to get to what I wanted, so I didn't want to fucking down because I want to be ready to blast anything. And the other dog just didn't know how to down. So he's like, "You mean what?" So both of those dogs, as soon as one of my pet trainers, because they were social enough, and I was like, teach this motherfucker to down. Then they were like, what do you mean? I'm like, teach him to down. Like, go grab like 4 handfuls of food and teach him to down over 3 days, and then bring it back to me. And then that took 15 minutes ish per dog, cast from e-collar pressure without a vocal mark. So just e-collar pressure with my hand, like sending. So casting with my hand and an e-collar pressure, they went straight into the bowl and plop right into it. And now they were still looking around, like looking to what I was doing and looking. They weren't focusing, but then I'm able to shape that by just reining and marking as soon as they're staring down. So
cool.
Yeah.
I quit. I told my trainers, I said, I'm done fighting dogs on the down. It's not worth it, especially a dog you get in from Europe, like on a Thursday, and you're trying to start work Tuesday, and they don't know who the fuck are you.
Yeah.
So, because I used to just use leash and collar pressure and kind of force that. Try luring, try it. If they didn't, I'd force it. I ain't doing it anymore, man. They'll get there. We'll get it down. Self-discovery, like you said, is better than starting your career, your relationship off with this dog with fighting. Now I'll force a sit, and it's a lot easier with the sit, forcing by up and then maybe push their ass. But that down is a thing, man. So
and I've got scars on both legs from doing the old school bullshit where you stand on a leash and fucking use your foot like a pulley and trying to yank the dog into a down position. You might as well just put your dick in his mouth too, because you're gonna get fucking smoked. And that is not the way.
Yeah. So guys, it's not worth it. Yeah, it's not worth it. I tell you what I'll do is I'll put them in a sit on a dog cot and make them sit so long that they can't physically, like they're so uncomfortable they want to lay down. And when they go lay down, I mark it and pay it.
Oh, here's another one. You and I talked about this a couple months ago during the down, right? Like, we got some dogs that don't want to down, and opposition reflex works in both ways, right? It works up and down, back and forth, and left and right. So I've had dogs come through that to get them to down or to sit, all I needed to do was provide a little bit of opposition reflex upwards on their bellies with my hand, and they'll push into it, right? Like, if you understand how opposition reflex works, and they'll down, and I can mark that behavior. And they're like, oh, rather than trying to pull them into position, and they're going to fight against opposition reflex because that's what we've taught. We've taught them not to yield the leash pressure. And all of a sudden they down because you touch them on their belly. And, they're like, I have a bunch of, and this is more of a point of personal professionalism on my part. I don't like pointers that point. My hands are up next to me, like the emoji on the Apple phone. Like, it's just a thing. I understand it's a change behavior. I understand it's a fully viable trained final response. I don't care. I want them to sit because it's a thing. It's my thing. I don't give a shit. I want them to fucking sit. So what I'll do is I'll tap them with my foot. Like, if they won't sit, they kind of do that fucking hover thing where they kind of like will half sit and half point and still, right? I'm fighting genetics at this point. So I'll literally just stick my foot down there and kind of lift up on their nuts just slightly, just lift, not kick, right? Like, I'm not kicking him. I'm just literally putting my foot down and like lifting him up so he hovers. and then you'll see their little landing pads. You'll see their feet lift up, and then I'll move my foot, and the ass will hit the ground, and then I'll hit the popper. Dog ball will come out, and they're like, oh, and then I don't know, 3 reps of that, and then those pointers will fucking hammer sits, and they'll do that under negative reinforcement too. So
there you go.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take our last commercial break. When we come back, we got a couple of other little things to talk about, and then wrap it up. So stick around. Don't go anywhere. Discount codes in the show notes. We'll be right back.
American Aluminum has been in business since 1992. They have been making so many things for law enforcement. It is not even funny. They make great things for the canine industry, such as canine inserts that actually saves dogs' lives in wrecks, and much, much more. I don't know if you guys listened to the episode on Canine Corporal, but please do so. It is an amazing episode that really talks about the value of what their products do. American Aluminum makes things that you might not even know that they make, like inmate transport systems, canine training aids, canine inserts, contraband containment, animal control systems, and the list goes on. American Aluminum makes great products here in America, and it is a fantastic company to get to know. You can call them at 800-277-0869. You can get a quote if you go to quotes at aaa-mail.com and ask them for a quote. They will be glad to oblige. Please tell them that we sent you. Arnaud at ALM Canine Equipment has been one of our longest time friends. 13 years ago, Arnaud made a suit for Ted. We call it his Whoopee, and he still has this suit, and it is still the only suit that he wears. We have had this thing re-sleeved about 6 times. It's ridiculous. It smells like a dead body, and he wears it all the time, much to my chagrin. But it is just a testament to how amazing of a product that Arnaud makes. He comes up with his own color combinations. You can get something custom. He hand sews it. Reach out to him at almcanineequipment.com. Check him out on Instagram at almcanineequipment. If you guys need a canine containment system, otherwise known as a kennel, if you need one or you need many, you need to reach out to Horizon Structures. Horizon makes anything that you can think of, from mild to wild. You can customize their kennels from the ground up. And the best part is, when they are done, they will drive it to your location. They will set it on your pad, and you plug this thing in, and it is ready to add dogs to immediately. Anything that you can think of in a kennel, Horizon Structures can make it happen. We've seen them. They are beautiful. If you go to Horizon Structures and check them out on the socials, if you can call them 888-447-4337, or check them out online, horizonstructures.com. They always have something cool going on. Thank you guys so much. Stay tuned. We have so many amazing things happening.
All right, everybody, we are back. Working Dog Radio, broadcasting the bike. Eric Sambro and Ted Summers. Year 6.5, I think we are at on this podcast, which is pretty cool. And we are just talking some training things, just a couple little things, no guests, just him and I talking. The one thing I want to show you, and you saw pictures of it, when I was in Colorado. Matt from Rayon showed up, dropped a fanny pack on me. I threw my patch on there. No, I don't have any patches, guys. I need to get some again, I think, but I just don't. And
I'll send you my guy. I'll send you the guy, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm sure his name is Andrew.
In quotations.
The funny thing is, that piece of food that I showed you earlier was in this pouch. This pouch has a lining in it where you can keep the food. Got a place for my phone. And way back in the day, dude, I used to wear a fanny pack, and I keep my duty pistol in it. It was a Smith & Wesson 4506. It was like having a bazooka. It was so ridiculous. That thing was so big. But I have been using this thing a little bit, not all the time, but I've been using it with some dog stuff. But I wanted to bring it here and show you. I thank you, Matt, for the fanny pack, Ray Allen fanny. It's very, very well made, and Very functional. I like to get some poop bags in it for the pet side of stuff. And so I saw a post today from I think it was Justin Tucker about the HRD in Moundsville, West Virginia.
Yeah.
Asking for decoys. You want to talk about that and just put an announcement, because this will come out before then.
Yeah. So at the end of September, it's the 20th. The third week is, or last week of September, like the 20, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're going to be in Moundsville, West Virginia, at the most haunted place in the country, at the West Virginia State Penitentiary. We're being hosted again by those guys. We went 5 years, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
2019, 2018. Yeah. I don't know. It was a minute ago. And going back, so we need some decoys for that one. It'll be awesome. There's a photographer coming. It's the High Risk Media Group guy. His name's Pink. He's awesome. He was a corrections officer and he was military, former military. He's a fucking hardcore dude, like hardcore music guy from, I think he's from Virginia now, but fucking covered in tattoos. Super nice guy. Anyway, yeah, we're gonna need decoys for that one. It'll be good. We're gonna have some good teams there. I expect that group to be pretty squared away. They were squared away last time. So yeah, we finished an HRD up in, it was hosted by USPCA up in Minneapolis last month. We had to travel during the Microsoft shit show. That was fun. So I stopped over in Chicago and saw Limp Bizkit on my way up. But yeah, so last week of September in Moundsville, West Virginia.
I think it's 23, 24, 25.
Yeah, 23rd, 24th, 25th. Yeah.
And Justin put it pretty in your face on there. This is not easy. It can be rough on decoys. If he's not paid, you got to find your own way there. But you will get more bites in those 3 days than you have probably to date.
Yeah,
for some of you, not for everybody.
And there's some things going on in the background, also with USPCA and some other stuff that we're kind of working on on the decoy side. And if you're a decoy and you're listening to this and you aren't in law enforcement, or you are a good decoy and you want to be involved, this is a way that because one of the things that I advocate a lot, and I'm not the only one, I definitely am not the only one that advocates this, like Carlos and Michael Nesbitt and, lots of our good decoy instructors in the country now advocating this, are like going to find sport kids and letting them decoy. And the issue is becoming that, that work is a lot different than the work that we do for HRD. But one of the best French ring decoys in the country, who we've had on the podcast before, Jason Davis, who is if you need to learn how to bite legs, that is the guy that you want to learn to bite legs from.
I just saw him when I was in Florida. He came
in Jacksonville. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome, man.
He's a fucking phenomenal decoy. He's kind of a jackass, but he is a phenomenal decoy. I love Jason.
I'd hit it. He's hot.
So he
about spit his, just now he spit his water out. Whatever he was drinking, he just spit it out.
It's not water. No. So he when he did the HRD in Florida with us a long time ago, he was like, yo, this is the most fun I fucking had as a fucking decoy in so long. Because it's, you're doing a lot of things that aren't like related to what you're doing in Monty Ring or French Ring or PSA or whatever sport you're doing. So yeah, we need decoys for that one. And it's always a lot of fun. It shouldn't be super hot. Last time we were there, it was hot as fuck. God damn it was hot. So this time, since September, it shouldn't be that bad.
Cool. Yeah. And you're going to, are you wearing your hat so that you don't have to talk on the camera?
No. Mm-hmm. Last time we were there, the
news media was coming and the sheriff was coming, and they're like, yeah, man, we want you guys to do, some news media. And Ted conveniently wore a hat, I think it was, that said, "Hey, fuckface" on it.
It said, "Show me that butthole." But
the "Hey, fuckface" is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
And there's something about, I'm not retarded, but I forget what it was.
Right. No, that's the hoodie I have. It's like, I'm not
Yeah.
the smartest, but I'm not retarded either. But
Yeah.
so
I had to do all the media, and I was like, come on, man. But anyways, show me your butthole. That was great.
sleeveless t-shirt on with a
anyways,
hat on backwards, and I'm like, yeah, I'll talk to him. Sure.
where can people find you? What's up?
So Ted_Summers on Instagram, Torchlight K9, letter K number 9, Oil Capital K9 Fund on all the other platforms, OC K9 Fund on Instagram, Torchlight Pets if you want to see pictures of all our pets. We got a 3-dog family coming in, so they have this giant pit bull Cane Corso mix thing, and it's getting its ass kicked by the 2 wiener dogs. And when they came in for the eval, I was like, what is this? So they'll be, the wiener dogs are just rocking this 140-pound pit bull thing. And super, like, the pit bull is a super gentle, just goofball. He looks terrifying, but so anyway, all that shit's on Torchlight Pets. What else? Oh, HRD Police K9. Oh, that one got smoked by Meta. Oh, another one of our decoys, Sarah Carver, who's been on the show. Sarah, right? Humping Hogan, by the way. Sarah's a fantastic decoy and is a fucking beast. She broke her fucking collarbone at the last DCART in South Carolina and decoyed anyway. But she, that entire process, during the HRD process and of her breaking her collarbone, she's now, I think she's better. I saw her on Instagram the other day. She's like now working. I don't know. She's working out again. So
I asked her, I reached out and I said, you're not decoying again. No, not yet. She can. I said, good. Don't, you'll get there, you know?
Yeah. So, but yeah, she's definitely, if you need decoy work when she's going back, I think she's still back in Texas. I don't remember, but anyway, HRD's got Meta got blasted because we were doing the island drill, and when she was getting into somebody's guard, she kneed somebody in the nuts on accident. It wasn't on purpose, and we got blasted for sexual content.
Really?
Yeah. 100%. They blasted the account. They had like 20,000 followers, and they were like, no, sexual content, nothing you can do about it. So I don't know. It's people like that. I'm sure there's a Pornhub thing that there's a category for that. So
get kneed in the nuts, I bet.
So I don't know, but yeah. So that's where you can find me. HRD Police K9, Torchlight Pets, Torchlight K9, letter K number 9. Ted_Summers is my personal one, where the videos I've been talking about, the tracking thing, that's where they're at. I think that's it. Oh yeah, Oil Capital K9 Fund is the 501. The 501 in 2025. We'll be doing a couple of seminars. We'll be doing your seminar, Eric. It's probably one of the first ones, and we'll probably have Kamisa come down. I got to contact some other people. I'm going to try and do 3 next year for 2025. So it's for the training is for anybody. So if you're in Arkansas, Texas, Kansas, Missouri, New Mexico, or even further away, and you want to come, it's a free seminar. So you can come to Eric's seminar for free. You can come to Michael Kamisik's thing for free. The 501 is going to pay for it. And
nice,
like, you show up, bring your dog, and go to work. Like, you have to pay for the hotel and food, but everything else is covered. So yeah, where are you at?
Yeah. Van S K9 on Instagram, Van S K9 on Facebook. Ridgeside K9 Ohio is the pet dog side, same as Ted. A lot of really cute dogs, funny looking dogs, good times on there. Ridgeside K9 Ohio. WorkingDogRadio.com for our t-shirts and all that other stuff.
Yep.
Check us out, Working Dog Radio on YouTube. Get on there and check that out. We've actually talked about at some point me even making a video here and there that has nothing to do with the podcast. We haven't really done that yet, but we might, just some, impromptu in the kennel type deal, or in the training room type deal.
Well, what we're transitioning to is going to YouTube for our behind the paywall thing, so that we can do, because the Patreon thing we're still doing the episodes for that, but the Patreon as a platform is impossible to use. So we're going to move over to YouTube. hopefully probably around the end of the year with all of our training content stuff. We have a bunch that we have in the pipeline to put up from another project that was the K9 Pro 360 thing that talks about some of the scenario-based training, how to plan it. You and I did a thing in the Funhouse of like a 3-part series on, or 5-part series on decoy work and bite work. And you did a thing on detection work. There's I don't know, like an hour and a half worth of shit that is going to be up there. I don't know, probably towards the end of the year. So
cool.
Yeah,
I was going to do OnlyFans, but I'm not. So sorry, folks. Nobody wants to see the OnlyFans. OnlyFans. All right, man. Well, it was good talking to you. I hope people like this episode. I think we dropped some good stuff on it for them to take back to their training and get to work on.
Yeah. And if you have any questions about any of this shit, shoot us an email or DM or whatever. All right.
We'll see you.
Thanks, guys.